So we're being live streamed. Yay! And I'm going to monitor on my phone in case we get any questions while we're doing this. So hello, Kate. Welcome to our group. I'm so happy to have you here. I am so excited that I actually did a live this morning, like completely a mess with it was great. So welcome. I so enjoyed our conversation. And I was telling everybody that, we had just planned like a 30-minute coffee break, and like 2 hours later, we're still talking, blah, 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 blah. So
Yes.
why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and yeah.
Yeah, so my name is Kate Vareness, and I have been a certified professional organizer in chronic disorganization since 2010, and a certified productivity coach since 2012. But I have also been working with people in their homes for over 15 years. And this piece of my career where I'm going into people's homes is kind of transitioning into more of an online coaching bit that I'm doing and a consulting, because all of this wisdom that I've gained from working with people exactly where they're at has given me some great insight that I want to share with a bigger audience. Of course, I love helping people transform within their own space, but now I get to take the message wider, and it's not about the stuff. It's about aligning with, and it's about accepting who you are and what you bring to the table, and then making space in your life so that it's all aligned, and so that your life is really working for you, exactly who you are, not as someone who's broken. We can get into that mode of treating ourselves like a project, right?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
And it's not helpful, because then there's this whole layer of like, you're not good enough. And at least my experience with not good enough is that you can chase it and chase it and chase it, and you never arrive. So I offer a different approach. Yeah, that really
You are
tunes
speaking to my heart. You
that
are
tunes
speaking to my
into
heart.
your wholeness. Their wholeness is already there. So let's discover the wholeness. Let's maybe take off some of those layers of stuff that we've taken on over the years of, other people said, you're messy, or you're lazy, or why can't you do X, Y, and Z? And they just don't understand. It's a different kind of brain, or it's a different kind of situation. So really it's about having the courage to look at what it is that's happening, and then have the courage to say, I get to do this. I get to make my space as simple as I can. It doesn't matter who tells me it has to be this other way. It can be simple and functional and beautiful too, but it's got to work for you.
It's funny because I like I said to you when we first talked, I have this such deep rooted shame, and I don't know where it comes from, but like I look at those magazines and those beautiful homes, and people come over to my house and it's like there's dog toys everywhere, you're stepping over the shoes and coats, and I buy things to like keep the shoes in, but the shoes never make it into those things. And there's dishes everywhere, and there's junk. It always seems to pile up in different places.
It's a really heavy energy, right? And I think we absorb in the collective consciousness this shame idea. I just did a live on this yesterday. I don't know if you saw it, but it was
No.
looking at the idea of the title was "You're Not Broken: Disorganization and the Shame Game."
I need to go watch that.
Take a look. Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with Brene Brown.
Yes,
She's
love
a
her.
researcher on shame, and she talks about the difference between guilt and shame, meaning that guilt is I did something bad, and shame is I am bad. So the piece of shame is that's so destructive, really, is that it's this idea that I'm defective, I'm broken, I have this fatal flaw because I'm disorganized, or because I'm heavier than whatever, because I'm older, I have wrinkles. I mean, that is just, it's baloney. You can know that on an intellectual level, but it's, imprinted in your body through conditioning that we receive either directly from people or from the magazines that set up these unrealistic expectations. I mean, if you're looking outside yourself for the guide to what's you're supposed to do, it's going to be hard to build a life that fits you. And
Yeah.
to me, that's the most important thing, is building that life that fits you, that feels easy.
So how do you work with people who I'll just be very public about this. My husband and I have very different tolerances as it relates to cleanliness, clutter, counter space, like very different. And I always joke that Bob will always be ready for a party before I am, because my idea of getting ready for a party is to spend 3 weeks putting things where they're supposed to go. And Bob's idea of getting ready for a party is to open up a box and use his hands to scoop everything into the box and take the box into the basement, out of sight, out of mind. And then I start to hyperventilate when he does that, because it's like, I'm not going to find anything.
Right. Yeah. And there's probably room for improvement on each extreme.
Oh my gosh,
Right.
yes. And then you add our 3 children in the middle of that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
The
So
thing
how
to
do you work
remember
with
is that,
people?
the thing to remember is that everyone does things for a reason. And so the most important piece that anyone can do to get started is to become curious about, why do I just set stuff down? Is it even on my radar? Like, is it just kind of like, oh, I'm putting this here and then you're moving on? You may not have any kind of outward awareness of that action or behavior. Or maybe you are. Maybe it's that there's a part of you that's saying, oh, this is going to take too long to put away, or I don't know where to put this. And so then it accumulates. So there can be many, many different reasons that things get set out on a counter, or things don't get put away, or whatever. It could be that the place that it's put away is too hard to get to, or too complicated, or whatever other reason. There are ways to make it easier. However, the opposite curiosity can be applied to the idea of, we're cleaning up for the party by just swooping it into a box and getting it out of sight, because that doesn't work either. It works temporarily. It does solve the issue very quickly. However, it actually just delays the issue, because then things are in the box. And I found that, like, if you put it in a box or a bag or a bin, it becomes very intimidating. And often it ends up sitting there and what I call like timing out, meaning that the things that should have been done or put away or whatever get either replaced. So then you're spending money that you really didn't need to spend, or you're missing a bill. So there's a financial impact there as well. Or you simply just have this icky feeling like you don't know where things are. Now, we talked about this in our conversation, and that is, there's a thing called touch memory. And this may be something that a lot of, many of your listeners and if your group don't know about. So that is when you're physically, if you're like a learner, tactile learner, kinesthetic learner, and you're physically setting something down, that's like your internal map to find it again. And so when someone else moves it, you are dislocated from that map. It's as if you're driving through the city and all of a sudden your Google Maps stops working. You're like, so then there's a panic. So then your nervous system gets activated, which makes it even harder to use the logical part of the brain that is wanting to locate that thing. So each of these methods has their reasons why you're doing it, and their reasons why it doesn't really function, because an accumulation it soon becomes overwhelming, doesn't it?
Mhm.
And other people are affected by that as well. So I'm guessing that your husband is what I call a stuff away person, meaning
Yes.
that he it's too noisy. When the clutter makes noise, it gets too noisy for him and he can't think. But someone who has stuff out usually has it out because they need to remember. It's like a visual cue. So they
Mm,
don't get that same noise effect. Although at some point it does reach a saturation level.
yes.
And then
I was
it's like,
just going to say that.
and then you think you've got to spend 3 weeks putting stuff away, which is a reason to never have a party, right? Because that sounds awful, doesn't it?
Every time we talk, I think, oh my God, she's been living in my life.
Yeah, I do have a camera in your house. I hope you just wave to me every once in a while. Oh,
And Sarah just joined us. Hi, Sarah.
Hi. Yeah, my appointment got out like half an hour early, so I'm like, oh, I can try to join in. So yes,
yeah,
That's
I'm here.
awesome.
awesome.
That's awesome. Perfect timing. Because I was just about to ask Kate how the issues of brain, different brains, get into this whole mix as well, right? Like whether you have ADHD or whether you have ADD, which is like the opposite, or you have depression or you struggle with mental health. How does that play into this whole organizational business as well?
So I'm going to answer this in the roundabout landing the plane, right? By talking about something different, which is a very ADHD kind of thing. Yes, but metaphors, right? So people with ADHD and ADD, they think metaphorically, they think
hmm
creatively. And so there's a number of different techniques that actually lean into that rather than say repress that and cause the person to think in a linear sequential buckets. It's a whole different way of thinking. So here's my tangent. Yesterday I was thinking about the history of left-handedness and how people, even up until like the 1970s, especially like in Catholic schools, I guess, kids were they had to put their left hand behind them and write with their right hands. And this is what I think it's like. I mean, it's so stupid. Who would do that now? Who would do that now? But this is the same thing that we try to do with a brain-based condition, which is of course invisible. It's not like having a
Yep.
broken arm and you have to write with your other hand, right? It's so this is why I say, first of all, understand and accept that your brain works differently. It in some ways it is it's a, you know, people say ADHD is a gift. I think the realistic answer to it is that it definitely makes life harder in a neurotypical world. And so how about we take the power back, get curious about ourselves because there are things that work. And then once you capture some of those processes, you can repeat them. So there's always patterns. Like I'm really good at seeing patterns and things, even though I have a right brain creative personality. So for example, I worked with someone who loved to scrapbook. Actually, she loved to buy scrapbooking materials. So, and she sometimes scrapbooked, right?
Yep.
And so what happened is that her behavior was to be excited about purchasing the items because it was so much fun to be in the store.
Yep.
So much fun to entertain the possibility of these beautiful things, right? And there's again that tangible, tactile, kinesthetic preference that's there. So instead of setting up her craft room, her hobby room as, in a boring way, we set it up like a store so that she could shop her store. I know, right? You just were like, holy cow, I get to do that. Yes, you get to do that. You get to move into your creativity. So this can get out of control. You can get carried away with creativity because
Yep.
it's so stimulating to think about new ideas, right? So the point I want to make is that the scrapbook store is a metaphor. And so you could create metaphors within your space. You can imagine that your closet is a boutique. You can imagine that your, I don't know. So these are ways of thinking of things that engage our creative brain, that helps to unify some of the categorization that and the sequencing that is a bit different for someone who is more of a linear thinker. That makes sense?
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
it.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you could do it with paper too. Like your tax files could be things to keep you out of jail. The more engaging a name is, if you can remember it. I mean, that's the thing, right? With ADHD is that perspective memory, the remembering to remember, can quickly undermine a system until it becomes kind of integrated into behavior.
One of the things I'd heard before, and I wonder what your take on it is that part of the reason disorganization happens is because we need to make decisions. And we might be in a situation where a decision is just too overwhelming at the moment, or because we don't know how to decide. So we put it aside because it's like, I don't want to deal with this right now. Versus if we make those decisions in the organization process, then we know where things go because the decision's already been made. How do you feel about that? What do you think of that?
Yeah, right. So let's just add the layer of shame about not being able to make decisions. Right? This is another area where we can beat ourselves up. And again, I say curiosity is really a valuable tool to be like, well, what feels hard about this decision? And not just for people with ADHD, but particularly with ADHD, there's a strong emotional component to it, and not wanting to disappoint others, thinking about how it affects others. There's a whole new rejection. What's it called? Rejection dysphoria, something.
Yeah, rejection sensitive dysphoria or something
That's
like
right.
that.
Yeah, RSD. So that's like a hot topic right now. I see
Yep.
it discussed a lot. And it's true. It's like when you're someone with ADHD, you're often quite sensitive and empathetic.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of sensitivity to emotions in others. And that could be taken on. You think, oh, this is about me. And especially when there's a history of an uneven performance, like you can't predict from day to day whether you're going to have a good day or not, or a good hour or not. And so then people interpret that, and as a sensitive person, you take it to heart. So then all of these things make decision making into a minefield, right? Because you're not just thinking that you're thinking about, am I disappointing others when I make this decision? Or even from just strictly from the standpoint of categorization. Can I trust my categories? If I put this in a certain spot, am I going to remember that it's there? If it's in a drawer, is it going to disappear? Right? So there's a lot of, it's not just emotional, there's technical pieces to this, but the emotional component, the meaning that we've made from the things that we've encountered in our lifetime, that adds this layer of depression and anxiety. I mean, I don't know many women who haven't, I will say this differently, many women who were not diagnosed with ADHD until later in life.
Yep.
They have a layer of anxiety, a layer of depression and self-concept that is based on trying to explain how they've navigated the world. And so it's like, okay, so we're going to spend all this time navigating the depression, anxiety, and are we ever going to get to dealing with the brain base, the neurochemical aspects of ADHD? And unfortunately, many practitioners are not informed about ADHD, and they see those anxiety and depression traits, and they treat it that way, or if you get to a certain age and they're concerned that, you know, you can't get a stimulant medicine because it's going to affect your heart, it can be a very complex thing. And so know that it is complex. Know that you deserve to have support that's informed. So if you go to a general practitioner and they they don't know about ADHD, you get to, or your support system, your companion in life can help advocate for you to find support that is informed. Because when they're not informed, that's a whole emotional ride, isn't it? It's just like, let's have yet another person not understand what my deal
Yes.
is. It's so discouraging. And then we take it to heart. And if you're a person who shuts down in conflict, or if you're a person who gets angry in conflict, these are not going to really help solve the underlying issue. Yeah. Are you feeling a sense of resonance, Sandra, of having your struggle be acknowledged?
I have goosebumps.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the other part of it, like I was diagnosed when my son was diagnosed, because I recognized, and I think I told you, I recognized that my husband and my son were having the same fights I had with my dad. And that's when I went and was diagnosed. And what's interesting for me is that the person I think I need to advocate with is actually my spouse. I think I have some excellent medical resources, but I don't think my husband understands the impact that what you were just describing has on both myself and my child.
Mm-hmm. And it's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing because often, you know, sometimes the dynamic in a relationship is that actually the spouse is the one who has undiagnosed ADHD or autism or whatever, and they kind of muscled through their life, grinning and bearing it, and so, and maybe their approach is that no, we don't address things, we just hope for the best. You know what I mean?
Okay, so like you just talked about Bob.
Yeah, it's very, very common. And so this is true for any kind of relationship thing. Now, listen, I've been married 27 years, and in recent years, I've come to remember my my magic. Like, I have stepped into some woo. I call myself the mayor of Wooville. Like, I use oracle cards. You know, all of it, right? I was just pulling stuff. So I've leaned into this exploration of myself, which was very much kind of put away when I was a kid because it wasn't safe. I couldn't do it. And he's got a different perspective, and that's okay. That's his perspective. I'm not going to change him. He gets to choose. I'm not responsible for his reaction. He gets to choose how he arrives. I can't take responsibility for his thing, but I can take responsibility for my own nurturing of myself. And so often when we're looking to others for affirmation, for validation, it's an indication that you get to validate yourself. Piece of you that is not acknowledging yourself, that's a great place to start. You don't need to change anyone else, but you can say, how can I honor myself right now?
Bring it on, bring it on.
Right, so what are some ways, so you tell me, what are some ways that you acknowledge yourself? That you
this is definitely a work in progress.
Yeah,
but,
of course, we all are.
I actually, what I was going to do was actually invite Sarah to offer any questions that you might have.
Oh, goodness.
or even some insight based on what Kate has been sharing.
Way to put me on the spot, Sandra.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, Kate, maybe I'll ask you a question that I got that was submitted, and that is, when we see before and after pictures of spaces, right?
Mhm.
There's these cute baskets, and there's like everything's fit, and everything's like all like a lot. And I'm like,
Yeah.
look, where's the last Amazon box I got? Maybe I
Yep.
can put contact paper on top of it, and like we're going.
Yep.
So I think there's also a sense of like, well, what do I use to organize?
Yeah, and before I answer that question, this is being recorded for your group,
Yes.
right? So there's a replay that people will be watching,
Yes.
and I would love for you, the people who are watching the replay, to make comments on ways that they affirm themselves, and maybe having conversations with small groups, and maybe being part of a group like this. It could be journaling. It could be who knows, all the different things. It could be oracle cards, right? Because these are ways that we connect with our own intuition and witness ourselves, or allowing support for ourselves. So I would love for all of you who are watching to share what works for you, because this is a great resource for each other, but it's also, in the process of sharing, you're also witnessing to each other that you're not alone. And that's the thing about shame. Now, we started this conversation talking about shame, and shame thrives in the shadows. So when we think we're the only one, and that we're defective, like, it's not safe to talk about that. Are you kidding me? You got to keep that hidden. You've got to put on a brave face to do all the masking that we talk about, like pretending like you're okay, pretending like you're listening, pretending like you got it together. And that takes a lot of energy, right? So shame thrives in the shadows. And the more that we can bring it into the light and have conversations about it, and to make sure you're in a supportive environment before you do that, because sometimes we actually are setting ourselves up to be rejected, because we're I know it sounds so twisted, but like, we've got a narrative in our head that nobody understands that, and everyone rejects us. And so in a way, we set ourselves up into relationships where we will be rejected, or where we're talking to someone who's our bossy know-it-all friend, who's like the wrong person to mention this to. So learn how to open yourself and be vulnerable with people who will receive that and support that and witness that. So there we go. Long answer.
It's so beautiful. And so one of the biggest ways that I honor myself is I take education classes like left, right, and center, right? And that's like, as soon as I finish one, I start another one. And I just finished a Gestalt program, and it basically covered everything you just spoke about, right? That we all have coping styles, and there's nothing wrong with them. They developed for a reason. It's only a problem when those reasons aren't there anymore, right? Or they're getting in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes we set our lives up to just redo those things over and over and over again, right? Because it's a habit and it's comfortable.
Yep. And like, from a medical standpoint, I believe the body has a process called homeostasis,
Yes.
which is a way to kind of keep things back to what you're used to. And that's a protective device. So in order to kind of shift into something different, you need a bit more focus and a bit more effort. And often having a community guidance, a coach, whatever, a friend who's also going through it with you, that helps to boost you up over that homeostasis, in order to find a different way. But it's a process, right? We've got to be kind to ourselves and show self-compassion in that process. Often making small tweaks along the way isn't very stimulating. So to an ADHD brain, there's a tendency to go all or nothing. And so
Yes.
Yeah. And so a little bit at a time, like 15 minutes a day of tidying, it's just terrible advice for someone with ADHD. It's just not the way brain works. So that itself can be another guilt-inducing thing. So when you're curious, you can notice like, oh, I tend to go in 2-hour bursts of cleaning, right? And that works for me. And then I go for 2 weeks and don't do anything. So notice
Oh my
what you're
God.
doing naturally and be like, okay, well, maybe I'd have a 2-hour burst. And eventually you get over the hump of the backlog of stuff. And then you can get to more of a maintenance stage. But it's, it's, you see how it's like, instead of writing with your left hand, your right hand, write with your left hand, if you're left-handed, So this is like, what am I noticing? What do I naturally do? Okay, how can I use that? So it's a whole different way of thinking it. And I would say that your question about containers is, I don't mean to say that it's an excuse in a diminishing way, but whenever we say everything will be perfect, everything will be good once I fill in
Yes,
the
I
blank.
do that all the time.
Yeah.
When I have time, when I'm retired, I will have time to X. When my kids are grown, I will have time to do this. When I have X amount of money, then I will
Yeah.
be able to do this.
Yeah.
And it's we're negotiating with ourselves. We kind of know we're lying to ourselves. The underlying question is, how can I start right now? And that may feel really unclear if we haven't had any alternative solutions given to us. So just the idea of like the scrapbook store in your home, right? That lit up your brain. I could see it, Sandra. I was see that it was lighting up your brain as a
I was like,
possibility.
totally, I can go shopping in my house.
Right. But we literally set up like the hooks, the hooks like that come
Oh
off
my
the
goodness.
pegboard. And so you could do that you could get pegboard at the hardware store and a stack of hooks, and you could hang up we took those little circle things and put the sticker things on that, and then you could pull them out. We had my category. Like, you can go to the nth degree, and this is what happens with ADHD is you're like,
Yes.
and you can't see
Yes.
the forest for the trees. So it's good to kind of is to use external timers to alert yourself to come back into your body process and notice, okay, maybe it's time to switch on to the next thing, or how can I simplify this and then I can make it more complex later. But as far as bins go, like I was working with a client, she had a family with not that tons of money, and we were organizing her pantry and we needed a solution at that moment. So what I said, I see you have some cans of some flats of soda over there. Could we take the pop cans out and use that? It's a really nice size. It's just about an inch to an inch and a half. We put that in her pantry because she had a really deep pantry, and used it as a drawer, as a temporary drawer. Because the problem with those deep pantries is that you can't see what's in the back, and then
Yes.
you just use what's in the front, and the stuff in the back goes. It's just ugh, who wants to like pull a bunch of things out? So we use those little cardboard soda can containers to be able to pull the stuff in front out. Now, it's a temporary solution because it's obviously not meant to hold up for anything with a lot of weight to it, but it was helpful for her to at least get started. The dollar store has like some really inexpensive solutions. You can do a lot with those clear shoebox containers. You can get those at the dollar store.
I have dozens and dozens of those.
So the key piece of anytime you're using containers, what you want to do is to put a label on it.
Yep.
Okay, because that communicates to everyone in the house. You don't have to have a fancy label maker, although I love my label maker. You could print something out on your computer and use packing tape and tape it down that way. You could use clip art if you've got younger kids. You can use clip art with a picture of a shirt and the word shirt, and then put that on the container in the kid's closet, and they know where their pajamas go. So it's a way to teach others in the household how to manage things so that it's not all on one person who themselves are struggling with, it's this is the thing, you like all of a sudden get the responsibility for managing kids and a household and all of this stuff, and it's really not maybe well suited to the brain. So finding a way to make it work can be done in multiple ways.
And using what you have.
And using what you have, and know that it's like temporary. But this is the thing that's underneath that, is that it's not good enough. Yeah. But you can always improve on something. If you get into the categories, get the functionality going, and then you know what size you need before you have a whole room full of empty bins that you're not using, that you thought you would, or they were on sale or whatever.
Yeah. You have a camera at my house, Kate. I know you have a camera at my house.
Okay, send them back to Canada because I could use them.
Yes. Yeah. In the US, we've got great access to so many wonderful organizing supplies that, for example, I was looking in the UK for things. They just don't have the same availability that we have here. So the point is, you can do a lot with a shoebox size container and a sweater size container. You can do a ton with that. And worst comes to worst, you can use sturdy boxes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's not a reason to not start. You can start by first taking a look at, what are you doing in that area? What's the zone? What are you doing in that? What belongs in that area? What belongs in the kitchen? What are the zones within the kitchen? And then setting up mini zones within the zones. Now, let's just take, for example, a pantry. You don't have to put all your canned goods together like typically you'd be advised to. You can create little kits. If you're making Taco Tuesday every Tuesday, make a Taco Tuesday kit, a bin. So then there's one place to look. Do I have salsa? Do I have my taco mix? Do I have shells? And then when you go to the store, all you do is look at the bin that is labeled Taco Tuesday, and you'll see, as opposed to having to sort through the vegetables for, do I have black beans or whatever. It's a way to shortcut. It's a way to simplify. And again, this is an ADHD friendly solution because it's grouped in a different way. It's grouped in a way that makes sense. So creative mind.
I have a question about zones. So I can totally relate when you were talking about scrapbooking. Mine, oh goodness, art has very recently become my way of honoring myself. I wouldn't call it art in the official sense. My problem is my supplies are overflowing right now. I live in a very, 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 very small 1-bedroom. So my area that I do art in also has to function as my workspace because I work remotely from home. It also functions as my let's relax and watch, Downton Abbey for 5 hours in a row. So what do you do when you have a space that has to function in multiple different ways?
Right. So do you have an area that your art supplies are currently are they collecting in a corner?
Yes, pretty much. They're exploding in the corner.
They're exploding in a corner. And why do you think they're exploding?
One is that I'm very ADHD, so I see something shiny and I have to have it. So I definitely overspend on, oh, I want to do this different technique. Oh, well, that means you have to buy this supply and this supply. And then
Mhm.
I don't have, similar to what Sandra was saying, I don't have containers to put them all in. And part of my problem when I put them in containers, even if they're clear containers, is that there's so much stuff I can't see what's in it. But I don't have space to put like a pegboard up and like make it a shop. I would love to do that. Oh my God, I'd love to do that. I just don't physically have the space. Um,
Okay.
and the
So
same, like,
what kinds of art supplies do you have?
oh goodness, markers, pencil, crayons, scrapbooking, watercolor, acrylics, stamping, yeah, you name it, I have it.
Okay, so I'm going to teach you guys a method,
Ooh,
and
I
this
want a
is
wand. Can
called
I have a wand?
play. Yeah, go to the dollar store, you can get a wand. This one's from Disney, so it's from Cinderella's castle, so it's special. But you can always just wave your hand too and use your imagination, because I know that you have one. So what are your favorites? Tell me your favorites of art.
Right now is sketching and watercolors.
Okay, so how about, do you have empty glass jars? Would you have like
No,
canning jars?
no, I
Do
don't
you
have room in my
buy
cupboards.
do you buy like pasta sauce?
Yeah, I'll keep those when I've gone through what's in them. Yeah.
Right. So a jar like a pasta sauce jar, or even a glass like you have there,
Mm.
could be used to display your markers. Like even if you have a narrow shelf, you could display those things. The idea is if you were walking into your studio, okay, and let's say your corner is your studio, you want to first of all be able to quickly see what it is you
Yes.
have, so that you can grab it and bring it to your table to do, or if I'm assuming you're doing it right where you're sitting.
Yep.
So you just pull it over, but then because it's easy to put back, it's just one motion. So then when you're done, you can take that, or even if you say leave it there overnight and the next morning you've got your tea heating or whatever, and then you just say, oh, I'll just put this right back on the shelf. One motion. That's what you want to go for in any organizing solution, is can I get this down to just one simple motion to get out and to put away?
Right. I started to do that. I don't know if you guys have Michaels in the US.
Yes.
Oh God, I love Michaels. Anyhow, they have these utility carts, which I fell in love with, and I have two.
Okay.
And one was going to be for health stuff. I have a lot of health issues, which is another use of this space. And the other was art, but they're so disorganized and they're exploding.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you imagine using like glasses, or I mean, even it could be plastic cups, and lining those on that top part of that cart?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that would be.
but so notice what are the things that end up pushing it over the edge. So it may be that the stamps are not really well suited to be put into a cart. They may
Right.
need to be like stored on the floor or in a box or something that you pull out separately. Maybe the extra sketchbooks and things like that would also be stored. So you want to like do tiers of most used and
Right.
less most, like where it can be in circles of use. And the good
That
thing is you
makes
can change
sense.
that. If you say
Yeah,
I'm bored of watercolors, I'm going to get into stamping now, then that means you just get to switch it out.
that makes
And
sense.
but the cart is your go-to place for what makes you delighted right now.
Yeah,
And
for
the
sure.
only thing that goes on that cart are the things that make you delighted right now, that you're doing actively right now. No extra supplies. No, like if you're on a break from stamping, right? Then put it in the timeout corner. Put it in, right? So
That makes sense.
so make it so it's like you can just, because if it's a hassle to try to get to the stuff that you want to do,
Yeah.
you're never going to get to it.
Yeah.
Like we have enough of this idea in our heads that we can't play until the work is done. Well, the work is never done.
No.
So in order to refresh our spirits, we need to play. And
Yeah,
make it easy for
that,
you to just
yeah,
roll it over and play and roll it back,
that
and
makes
then store
sense.
the extra things on, if you've got a
Yes, all the
tablecloth or
extra
something,
stuff.
a tablecloth, you can put it out of sight or
Maybe.
just tuck it into a less accessible place,
That
but
makes
it's
sense.
still in the zone.
Right, right.
Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Kate, I love talking with you.
Thank you.
So I'm conscious of the time. I know you
Yeah.
have other things you need to do. And I know you've got some stuff coming up that I wanted you to share with us. So why don't you tell us about those?
Yes, so I am doing a couple things this week. I just decided on a whim that I was going to be doing some lives this week. That if you're friends with me on Facebook, if you're not friends, become friends with me, or you can like my Facebook business page, which is Kate Vareness, Clarity Coach. So if you just search Kate Vareness, you're going to find my stuff. So friend me, like my page, you're going to see those videos I'm doing this week. But then I also have a free challenge next week that delves into some of this stuff. Like that's a no BS approach, I guess. I don't have much patience for the kinds of nonsense solutions that don't work for neurodivergent folks. But I can put that, let's see.
So I'll put that all here on the link as or on
You
the
put that on the link. Okay, so the challenge link is create delightful spaces, even if organizing feels impossible. And that link is katevareness.com/delightful spaces are possible. I put that in the chat box of this so you can grab it. And then I am opening up doing like kind of an intensive 2 months program that has a course with all of the different tips that I have, as well as 6 Q&As that, over the period of 2 months, and email support from me over the period of 2 months. And that is katevareness.com/organized home. So it's really meant like if you're someone who wants to have me be like the scaffolding around you, my clients will say they have a little Kate on their shoulder, and that's because they're hearing this reinforced from me and gaining some practice. And so that's a group program, but it's going to have so much personalized attention that'll be really valuable. So both of those links are there in the chat that you'll then share.
I'll have
Okay.
those. I love talking with you. Thank you so much.
All
And
right, so
if you just yes, put your crown on. There we go.
Get a crown, ladies. Oh, Linda, the good witch says. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And
so
if you've seen Wicked, she wasn't as such a good witch as she comes off in the first story.
Yes, they never are what they seem, and neither are we, right? We're beautiful, creative women here to have the full human experience, which is beautifully complex.
I love that. Thank you so much. I hope you'll come back and chat with us again.
Yes, it would be a delight. Thank you so much for the questions and the participation, and connect with me on Facebook. We can get some more fresh insights.
Cool. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
It was good to see you too. I knew Sarah like
way back.
Way back.
Like I was a little kid. Yep.
Wonderful.
Bye.
Bye.